welcome to another episode of Olsem Wanem. Have you ever felt angry, depressed, anxious, or fearful that it affects the way you react to certain situations personally and socially? In this episode, we look into mental health and mental health problems. What is mental health? Mental health deals with our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. Mental health is important because it affects how we think, how we feel, and how we act. The state of our mental health determines how we react to certain situations, how we handle stress and relate to others, and how we make our choices.
When you go and check this definition from World Health Organization in 1946, their definition is basically, it talks about health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and they added the spiritual.
Many people suffer from mental health problems almost every day. And of course, we all experience moments of sadness, anxiety, and moodiness at times, and it is quite normal for a human being to do so. However, it becomes a serious problem when it interferes with a person's ability to function well physically and socially. It is an all too common sight to see people who are mentally ill on the streets of Port Moresby and across the country as well. Often these individuals are based at particular locations throughout the city. They are homeless and are often seen with torn clothes. They look scruffy and they think and act in a rather abnormal way. Many of them have been neglected by their families or communities. Sometimes it looks as if nobody even cares about the welfare of these individuals, and we sometimes ask ourselves, are they truly mentally ill or not? There is also a strong existence of stigma and discrimination towards people with mental illnesses in Papua New Guinea.
Sometimes it's quite difficult to explain to the people who are not interested in mental health, or purposely they don't want to understand, or that in a different level people have different perspective about mental health.
As well as stigma. Stigma is a barrier to patients accessing mental health services.
Understanding mental health and mental health problems will help reduce stigma and discrimination towards people with mental health illnesses. There are various factors that increase risk of developing mental health conditions.
There's a combination of factors. It comprises, it's a combination of genes, because you have a genetic vulnerability. Once you're exposed to stress of everyday life, like drug abuse or losses like relationship problems, divorce, separation, death, trauma, physical trauma, health injuries, even physical illnesses. They trigger on mental illness in somebody who is already vulnerable.
Some people are affected by mental illness or mental disorders, which include abnormalities in thinking, feelings, and behavior. Mental illness includes anxiety, that is when one has an unrealistic worry about an aspect of his or her life. Depression, on the other hand, is the feeling of hopelessness. Phobias, an unrealistic sense of danger about a situation or object. And schizophrenia, when one has confused thoughts or hears voices and sees and believes things that others don't.
Mental illness in PNG, the incidences have increased. Throughout the world, because lifestyle now is more more complicated. The human species supposed to be a social species, living in a community, caring for each other. But now, because of technology, we've moved up step to X and Y generation, where people are now becoming competitive and more individual. So now, whenever you have problem, you are the only one who's going to deal with it because no one else is listening to you. So, especially in people who are living in urban areas, problems getting much and much more complicated, and that's why people are having more mental illnesses, because we are now more advanced and we are now become, rather than being social beings, we are now being individuals. So whenever a problem appears to someone who has no social network, we call it, then he is lost because there's no one to help him. But our ancestors lived in communities, and whenever someone didn't have enough to eat, another person helped, assisted. When there was death, people were who counsel each other, and there was not much mental illness.
Welcome back to Olsem Wanem as we look into mental health in Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea's mental health sector is faced with many challenges in terms of trained personnel to the availability and accessibility of services. At the moment, the country has only 7 psychiatrists. We also take a visit to the Laloki Public Psychiatric Hospital, which is one of the only long-term psychiatric facility in the country.
So psychiatry was not a big problem before. People suppressed training. People who were in key positions suppressed training. People in administration shut down psychiatric hospitals, turned them into other things.
The number of mentally ill patients has increased over the years, and many are coming out to seek help.
People are smart, so they are seeking help. But with the changes, people are reporting and coming more and more. We have lack of mental health workers, which we are working on it to do that, and also we are more and more people need admission, but we don't have facility to admit.
The Laloki Public Psychiatric Hospital, located about 16 kilometers outside Port Moresby, is the only long-term psychiatric facility in the country. It was built in 1976. Back then, it could only cater for 100 patients. However, over the years, there has been an increase in patient numbers.
The admission trend from 2004 to last year. In 2004, we had 119 patients in total who were admitted in the year. Last year, the number was 208 patients. So as you can see, within the 10 years, the number has jumped. The admission has jumped from 119 to 208. So we've been getting like an average of 9 patient increase every year. The highest age group we have at the moment is the 15 to 35 year bracket. Those are the ones that are supposed to be the most productive, or the ones that are supposed to be, beginning school or starting a career. So it's quite devastating when the illness strikes at a time and they're unable to finish the school or they're unable to begin the career. So it's quite unfortunate that these are the most common group of patients we have.
These single rooms here have been designed to cater for only 1 patient. However, due to the increase in the number of patients, 1 room is now being used to accommodate 2 mentally ill patients at a time. Laloki Public Psychiatric Hospital also caters for forensic patients. Studies have shown that forensic patients have a high degree of tendencies to violence. Therefore, they should be kept in a separate room and wards from other mentally ill patients. But this is not the case for this hospital. Due to overcrowding, forensic patients are kept in the same room as other less violent patients.
We have patients, some patients have been here for over 10 years. There are some patients who've been here for only a few years. It really depends on the court process. Some of them are waiting for power of mercy. Most of the patients we have here are patients that were referred from provincial CIS, not so much Bomana, because at the moment we have a very good working relationship with Bomana. So when patients recover from here, we send them back to Bomana and await the court trial.
Committed illegal drug offenders are often sentenced to Laloki Psychiatric Hospital without being mentally ill, which is a burden to the hospital.
We have problems with patients who are coming from outside. We also have another group of patients where they are sentenced here, as if being sentenced to a prison. Okay, they are sentenced here for drug offences, okay, without any mental illnesses. So that's quite the implications are that it takes a bad space for us, which we need for admitting genuine mentally ill patients. And sometimes, most times we have difficulty discharging them because they come under court order, and we can discharge them. And trying to communicate with the magistrates or the judge that was involved in prosecuting them in the first place is very difficult.
Despite various challenges, Laloki Psychiatric Hospital has been silently and humbly serving its purpose with whatever resources and funds it has available. Another sad issue is that the hospital has been using water supplied from a bore well, which has been proven to be contaminated and unhealthy. Funds were allocated last year for a proper water connection with Edaranu. However, nothing has progressed with this. Now, Tulay, where like the rest of the country, has a serious deficiency in mental health specialists. Government attention towards assisted services like counseling has declined since the 1970s. For a growing city of over 400,000 people, there are only 2 mental health experts. This story from Scott Wider in Leh.
At Leh's Angao Hospital, the capacity of the psyche unit is not the same as it used to be. Staff numbers have been cut. The main ward it used to have was destroyed by termites.
We must have a social worker. The psychiatric unit should have its own, and the hospital. And we should have a rehabilitation officer. We should have an occupational therapist. And we should have a psychologist, somebody who can sit and listen to our problems.
The unit now operates in this part of Angao Hospital. It's managed primarily by a small group of nurses who have to handle sometimes violent patients.
It's not safe and it's not allowed for psychiatric patients to be in an open ward. But all the other patients, they're not happy, they're frightened. They're frightened to have a psychiatric patient who's walking around talking to himself and getting cross, and looks around and see other patients, and when he's not happy, he says something because he's hallucinating. When he's hearing voices, and it's very difficult for him to stop talking.
When the contractors began constructing the current building 9 years ago, Nurse Filma Gadebo raised concerns that the specifications of this building were wrong. Today, the unit doesn't admit patients here because it's too dangerous for the staff and other patients.
And the cell is here. Sorry, my patient's in there, so that is the cell. And this is for the recovery part of the ward. It's so close. If these people are recovering and patient in there shouting and screaming, you one coming in and locked in the cell, these people are going to all start shouting and screaming, and then they are down again, and we have to start all over again to take care of them. And the building itself, it's not, it's not suitable and it's not properly made for a psychiatric patient to be taken care of. A patient who is coming hallucinating, shouting, screaming, and angry, the moment they enter the psychiatric ward, their freedom is taken away. As we take them in and then we're going to lock them up and then treat them. When they get settled, then we take them out. But I don't have the proper ward here to take care of the patients, because the ceiling is too low, that the lights are low, and they can get electrocuted because they're going to stand and rip the place down. We have lowers here, glass lowers, and it's not safe. They can just break this and get out. The toilet and shower at the back, there is open screen. Like no bars. It's not supposed to be like this.
But this is just part of a nationwide problem. The lack of understanding of the importance of mental health services means that funding, staffing, even building needs for this specific area of health is given the lowest priority by the government.
We didn't have doctors. We didn't have doctors in the provinces. There are few, so they were in Moresby, based in Moresby. But this is the first time that we have doctors with us here. Mostly it's the nursing officers taking care of the mental health unit in provinces.
In Papua New Guinea, there are only 6 Papua New Guinean trained mental health specialists. This means that there is 1 for every 1 million Papua New Guineans. It's an area least understood, but in high demand. Not many people understand that good mental health is an important part of society. Not many understand also that many of the social problems stemming from family breakdowns can be resolved if the existing systems that deal with mental health are strengthened and supported.
450 million people worldwide suffer from severe mental illness and kind of some long kind of some.
Dr. Chamilao Posanau is one of 6 mental health specialists in the country. He moved to Ley 1 year ago. He is a welcome addition to the mental health unit in Ley.
So when you have extra psychiatric nurses, you can admit patients and you can put them in shift, 8-hour shift. And then you can have maybe 1 or 2 extra to do counseling. And then not only that, but we can get psychiatric nurses, they can go and get retraining and become social workers. And because of the psychiatric nursing background, I believe, other people may disagree, I think they will do a better job.
Dr. Posanau's main concern is the growing number of cases of drug-induced psychosis. The primary cause is the high rate of marijuana consumption in Ley City. It's a problem being addressed both by the police and to a lesser extent by the health department. But what needs to happen is a coordinated effort by all stakeholders.
The mental health is, for example, when we say to somebody in Motu or Pichin or Inamo, you're right, that one we are inquiring about their mental health. We may not be aware of it, but that's asking about their mental health. So mental health is not, long now, cover, so only go looking all health workers in the hospital. No. It's, if you've got a problem, you discuss it quickly. You go and see a counselor or your pastor or somebody who's going to keep a secret. And you discuss with them and then you get over it. So when the problem is small, you tackle it quickly. You don't leave it until it becomes a big thing, and then you have more problems.
Concerns over mental health facilities in Ley are just a reflection of what's happening throughout the country. While on the outset, this doesn't seem like a big issue, but the crimes that are committed, the social problems, and other things related hinge on the state of mental health in Papua New Guinean communities.
Mental health services have deteriorated over the years due to challenges associated with leadership, governance, financial, and human resources. However, for people like Dr. Ambi, Dr. Goiba, and Dr. Nanawa, and their psychiatric nurses, they have never given up on their patients and on educating the wider public. We now take a look at how we can address mental issues in our homes and communities. Like all other health issues, mental illness should be treated. When mental illness is not treated, it causes serious emotional, behavioral, and physical health problems, and these include social isolation, poverty and homelessness, as well as a weak immune system. Mental health can be addressed within our homes and communities, and it can make a big difference.
You know, psychiatry, when we talk about psychiatry, it's not only about medicine. We talk about psychiatric first aid or psychological first aid, which is giving your shoulder to someone who needs your shoulder, giving them help, sitting down, listening to them and understanding them. That's where psychiatry starts. Medicine and hospital comes much, much later on. So we have church groups, NGOs, and people in the community who do that work, welfare work, attending to problems, heavy committee, and other churches like the major churches who run normal counseling workshops and counseling work. Those are part of our work, psychiatric work. But they have been doing most of this work. Psychiatry has just come in. Now we are more hospital-based. Psychiatric services and mental health services are two different things, but they do the same thing. Psychiatric services provide service to patients in hospital, patients who have already broken down, who have already developed illnesses, and who need specialist help in the hospital. Mental health services is more community-based, dealing with drug awareness, community rehabilitation work, home visits, and preventative and awareness work. And that's what public health part of psychiatric services.
As part of the treatment, psychiatrists involved a lot of talking therapy.
We plan on giving marasenta solo straight in kuru blow the all chemical inside lo kuru. But what's happening, we have to give talking therapy. We said psychotherapy or this kind, talking therapy or this kind. On the other hand, we have occupational therapy. We have to have different, that's what when you go into rehab, and we have to set up, so the setting up mental health services is very unique.
A management of mental disorder book has been published to assist rural health workers in dealing with people who have mental issues.
We have come out with a management of mental disorder book, which we launched it few months sometime last year, and it basically gives all the way how to manage each mental health problem, and we are looking forward to give it to the very remote primary health care people, where they don't have to look for, because the number of mental health workers are very low. It's just because the way it is. So we are very proud that we have published a management of mental disorder book, which will be very useful at the primary health care level.
It is also important to be aware if you have risk factors to mental illnesses, so you can try to live healthy and protect yourself.
Risk factors are divided into predisposing factors, precipitating factors, and perpetuating or continuing factors. Predisposing factors are things that have been there, like if you have family history of mental illness, or if you have if you were delivered from a complicated labor, or if you had very serious infection as a child, or if you had a severe motor vehicle accident with head injury, you're already at risk of having mental illness. So you have to be very, very careful. Then we have precipitating factors, which are losses like deaths, denial money, loss of boyfriend, loss of girlfriend, then physical illnesses, things that put us at risk of being stressed. Those with predisposing factors, you have a very high chance of developing mental illness. Then we have what I call continuing factors, things that continue to put us at risk of developing mental illness, like continuing domestic violence, poor compliance with medication, even low socioeconomic status and poverty. Those things, if you have those factors, you have to be very careful. Our mind is protected, and it was created because it is very vulnerable physically and soft, so it has a skull surrounding it. Generally, basically, we try as much as possible to protect our mind. What we do, what we eat, how we conduct our life determines how we think. So, if we feed our mind with bad things, anger, talking about somebody else at his back, or planning to do something bad, we are poisoning our mind. Apart from that, we have to eat properly, balanced diet, eat a lot of fruits and nuts. Nuts have trace metals that are very important in our brain. And we talk about omega-3. It's seen in fish. So you have to eat a lot of fish to get omega-3. It gives us protection in our mind. It nourishes our mind. We try as much as possible to, in life we should have a goal to live a life. What do you want to achieve in life? Then we try to work towards those goals every day. So we try as much as possible to remove the things that drag us backwards. We have to do the things that will get us forward so that we achieve what we want to achieve in life. And I think that's what life is. I mean, we live to serve the other person, and we actually do that all the time in our lives, to serve the other person.
For those who are mentally ill and on the streets, they can be brought to mental health clinics by their families or the police. They can also seek treatment for themselves before it gets worse. And that's all we have time for on Olsem Wanem. Coming up next week, we take a look at urbanization and housing issues within the country. Well, if you have any comments or stories you would like to share, please contact us via the address on your screen or visit us on our Facebook page. For now, enjoy the rest of your viewing on your #1 station, MTV.